while ago my brother brought home some electronic junk from his job in broadcast, so before throwing everything out we decided to sort through the boxes, and we actually found a few things worth salvaging. In particular this thing, the Atomos Ninja 2, caught my interest. There's only one problem though. It doesn't work. Before I begin though, with this being my first video, it's not going to be perfect, and in fact there's quite an audible hiss throughout, as you probably heard already, which I can bring in so you can have a taste of that, and bring out for this voice recording. I tried my best to keep the production value as a whole at least reasonably high, so that's probably the weakest part of a video I'm otherwise pretty happy with, so sorry about that, but with expectations set, let's get these screws out. With the screws out, I'll remove the faceplate, and maybe you can see the problem. If not, take a closer look at the ribbon cable. Next I'll remove the plate covering all the inputs. I'll admit, when I got here the first time taking this apart I was a little stumped. Nothing was really moving without using more force than I wanted to, but looking closer I noticed that the motherboard sits in the same track that those 4 screws came out of. Here, here, here and here. So without any screws, it's obvious I can take this out. And before I try to repair the ribbon cable, I figure I might as well take these screws out and show you what's underneath the last panel, because I know some people will be curious. And as you can see, there's not much to look at. If I had to take a guess, I would say that this is all related to the batteries which go on the back, and it's probably where it's distributing the power to the rest of the unit. So now we can get rid of this for the time being and bring the screen back in. If you couldn't see where the ribbon cable was broken before, it should be pretty obvious now. You can see I have 2 last screws to take out before I can get to the ribbon cable properly. So let's unscrew those. So here you can see where the ribbon cable connects to the board, and the cable itself is in the screen. So I imagine that in the case that a cable did break, you just have to replace the entire screen. But I'll try repairing the cable. To do that, I think I'll have to remove this bit of foil for better access, if I can. There we go. Got an art scalpel, so hopefully I'll be able to just pry that out. Maybe from here. There we go, I figured it out eventually. So you can see that the cable is still okay here and here, but it's this main cable that has split. Turn it over, see if get a better look from the back. Also looks like that part. So fixing this seems like it will be rather difficult. And it was. I think to solder this cable properly you'd need to remove the layer of plastic a lot more than I did. I sort of just gave it a very brief sanding because I didn't really have anything suitable around at the time. And the same goes for flux or whatever you want to call it. One of the solders I tried did have a flux core or something, but that clearly didn't help much anyway. All I really accomplished was singeing the cable, and I did try lowering the temperature of the soldering iron, but then it wasn't even hot enough to melt the solder, so I had to turn it back up again. So to sum it up, I think I just didn't properly expose the traces of the cable, which meant I just ended up burning it regardless of what I tried. So as you can see, that didn't go very well, but while I probably could try again instead, I've actually got a second one, which also doesn't work. So I'll take the screen out of this one and put it into the other one. And with the magic of editing, we're back here. This time the faceplate is still attached to the screen. I think you can probably take it off if you want, but the whole thing sort of is supposed to slide out as one, as opposed to what I did with the more broken one where I took the faceplate off and then removed each piece one by one. Now the problem with this unit is the connector. It's come out somehow, and the traces that it's supposed to connect to on the board, it doesn't. So maybe you could fix that if you were very skilled with a very small soldering iron tip and a magnifying glass and that sort of thing, but I don't have that and I don't have the patience for that, so instead I'm just going to swap the screens. that's not supposed to happen. And it goes to show that this one really is quite broken. In any case, that should be okay to remove for the time being. And now I've just got to get this broken connector off. So I'll do that, and then we can put this screen in the other one. Okay, the cable looks alright. Now that this is off, I'll give you a closer look at it. You can see it's really gunky for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but you can see it's also cracking down the middle too. I figure I might as well give you a bit of a closer look at the board too. This is obviously where the connector's supposed to sit, and I'll fade to that. I don't recognise any of the parts obviously, but some people find that kind of thing interesting, so there you go. You can see a bit of a gouge there right at the top as well, and I guess this one had just been dropped too many times. I can't think of much else that would do it. So with that out of the way, I can now attempt to put this cable in. Seems okay to me. So here we are once again. Hopefully the screen swap will have solved all the issues. Feels a bit like cheating, but what are you going to do? I also did put that yellow foil back on, in case you're curious. So no need to worry there. And before I put this back in, I figure I might as well show you how the SSD works. So to get everything looking okay, I've moved my light. It's still not perfect, but I've got a torch as well, so it'll do. So you can see here where the SSD or HDD will connect, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll slot this part in. Can you hear that went in? And if I try to pull it out, you can see that I can't. Because you have to push a switch on the back. Take this out so you can see a little better. So if I use the torch now, you can see a little prong over on the left. That will go into this hole. When you put the SSD in, I'll shine it again, and you can see it'll move out of the way once you press it in. This is of course what the connector looks like. Now all I gotta do is screw it all back up, then I'll be able to test if it works. Back together once again. Now I'll turn this over, show you the back. These are the battery releases. Obviously the batteries go on either side. You actually only need one though. So this is what a battery looks like. It actually uses the same type as the lights I'm using, so it must be some standard. I've also got this Atomos branded one that plugs into the wall instead. So I'll pop them in and we'll see if it turns on. Let's give this a shot. And it works. I guess it should. But I'm a little surprised if I'm being honest. It's actually quite exciting. If I put the SSD in, now because this isn't connected to a camera, there's really not much I can do with it, but you can see me going over various settings you'd use to adjust the unit and its recordings, and if I had the right cable to connect it up with this camera, I'd be able to record without the compression of whatever video format, and I guess get a live feed of the camera output as well. As you can see by my fiddling here, there might be a bit of a dead zone in the left corner, but it's not such a big deal since you've got the power button on the side anyway. Without having tried it myself, I can't go too much further in depth with this thing, but I think from the settings alone you can pretty clearly see that this was a professional device, even if it's a bit old now. And there are newer models and other products Atomos offer these days, so they're definitely still around. Okay, before I go to the outro, I wanted to say a few things about the video and the future of this channel. Firstly, thanks for watching. I'm glad you had the patience to watch me amateurly take this random thing apart. This is actually a third unit, which kind of works, but has a pretty bad dead zone. And the one with the original screen is boxed up in parts since there's not too much point putting it back together with a bad screen. It's a bit of a shame I didn't get to peel that sticker off, but what are you going to do? I had two that weren't working and came out with one more that is. Next, as I mentioned earlier, this is my first video, so it's definitely been a bit of a learning experience. A lot of the takes I ended up with were pretty average, and I had to do a lot of work in post to get it up to standard. In the future I'll just delete bad takes as I get them, so I don't have to sort through them later on. I think I also learnt a fair bit about audio recording and editing too. Getting rid of dead air and that sort of thing isn't really something I've had to do too much of until now. There are actually a few more video segments I was thinking of doing for this as well, but for the sake of brevity I cut them. The first is I was going to go further in depth on what the Ninja 2 is and is for, and I was going to intercut between myself and footage from Atomos themselves, but I don't know that I do a great job explaining that stuff, and I wanted to keep the focus more on the repair itself. The second segment was just sort of something fun, where I would look into more of what Atomos are and what they do, since they're actually an Australian company, and I do a sort of virtual tour of where they're based. But yeah, I didn't want this to be much longer than it already is, so I decided to cut that stuff. I was also thinking of showing some more of the stuff that came from my brother's work, but maybe I'll make that its own little thing on the second channel. Speaking of that, it's a thing that exists. It's called CBS Extra, and if you're interested, I uploaded 2 much shorter videos at the same time as this. I've got the socials you'd expect to, and a website. Starting now, I'll try to put out a probably unfunny tweet at least occasionally, and I'll post the full pictures of the boards up to Instagram in case you wanted a better look at them. I don't know how much I'll end up using Insta, but it's there. I'm not going to ask you to like or subscribe or anything, or... well, you get the point, but it would be great if you could leave a comment. It's a bit hard to record while I still live with my family, so until I move out, I'm not sure if I'll really be able to upload so much, but I'm still very much interested in any feedback you have or whatever else it may be, and I do hope I can ramp up production at some point. Finally, huge thanks to Virtuous Rage for making the intro logo. It's pretty sweet, and looking back at it, it was a pretty random request for me to ask him to do it for me, but he was happy to help me out, and here I am finally making use of it, so thank you so much. I'll leave his website and other links I've mentioned in the description. I've got a lot of stuff planned for the future, and I hope I'll see you there. Thank you very much for watching, and please enjoy the outro. Look at this little fella. E.T. He's in the Senate.